The morning sun glinted off the glass facade of Diallo Tower as Amina stared out from her penthouse office. 60 floors below, Lagos buzzed with life. People rushing to work, street vendors setting up, taxis honking. But from up here, it all seemed like a silent movie, a world she could see but never truly touch. Ms. Diallo, the board is waiting. Her assistant's voice crackled. It through the intercom. Amina sighed, straightening her tailored Burberry suit. At 25, she was the youngest tech CEO in Africa, having taken over Digisahel after her father's stroke last year. The company, which had revolutionized mobile banking across the continent, was now valued at over $11 billion. Tell them I'll be right there, she replied, taking one last look at the city below. The boardroom fell silent as she entered. 12 men and 2 women, all at least 20 years her senior, watched her with expressions ranging from thinly veiled skepticism to outright resentment. Despite her Stanford MBA and 5 years as Chief Innovation Officer, many still saw her as Ibrahima Diallo's little girl playing businesswoman. Quarterly projections are up 18%, she announced, sliding into her chair. Our expansion into East Africa is ahead of schedule, and the new mobile payment platform launches next month. The meeting proceeded as they always did, with Amina having to work twice as hard to be taken half as seriously. Afterward, she retreated to her office, kicking off her Louboutins and collapsing onto her sofa. Her phone buzzed with a notification. Another tabloid article. Africa's most eligible bachelorette. Who will win Amina Diallo's heart and fortune? Below was a photo of her at a charity gala, alongside speculation about her rumored relationship with a French soccer star she'd met exactly once. She threw the phone aside in disgust. Last month, she'd discovered her boyfriend of 8 months had been recording their conversations, hoping to sell insider information to competitors. The month before, a childhood friend had resurfaced, only to ask for $1 million investment in a nebulous business venture. Amina walked to the window again, pressing her forehead against the cool glass. When was the last time someone had seen her? Seen her, not her wealth, not her family name, but her. An idea began to form in her mind. Crazy, impulsive, potentially disastrous. But the more she thought about it, the more right it felt. 3 weeks later, Amina Diallo disappeared. Aissatou Sow arrived at Westlake University with 2 suitcases and a student visa. Her backstory was simple. An exchange student from Dakar, studying computer science on a partial scholarship with limited funds and big dreams. Gone were the designer clothes replaced by jeans from Target and hoodies from H&M. Her luxury watch was now a simple fitness tracker. Her iPhone was swapped for a mid-range Android. Her normally sleek hair was now in natural curls, and her makeup was minimal. The dormitory was a shock, a tiny room shared with a music major named Zoe who had already plastered her side with band posters and fairy lights. The bathroom was communal, the mattress lumpy, and the Wi-Fi spotty. It was perfect. For the first time in years, Amina, now Aissatou, felt invisible. No paparazzi, no sycophants, no expectations. She blended into the crowd of students, just another face in the lecture hall. She'd arranged for her trusted security chief to manage a skeleton crew to monitor her from afar, and her COO was handling day-to-day operations with the cover story that she was taking a sabbatical for personal wellness. She had given herself 1 semester, 4 months to experience normalcy before returning to her real life. On her 3rd day, while struggling to find the campus bookstore, she literally bumped into Elijah Carter. "Whoa, sorry," he said, steadying her as her campus map fluttered to the ground. He picked it up, glancing at her highlighted route. "Bookstore. It's actually that way. The map's outdated." Elijah was tall and lanky, with warm brown skin, glasses, and a smile that transformed his serious face. He wore a faded university sweatshirt and carried a messenger bag patched with duct tape. "I'm headed there myself," he continued. "First week?" She nodded, slipping into the accent she'd practiced. "Yes, I just arrived from Senegal." "Cool, I'm Elijah, journalism major, junior year." "Aissatou," she replied, the false name still strange on her tongue. As they walked, Elijah pointed out landmarks, the library with the best study spots, the cafe with student discounts, the quad, where clubs recruited during activity fair. At the bookstore, Amina gasped at the prices, not because she couldn't afford them. She could buy the entire store without blinking, but because she suddenly understood why students in her university days had always complained about textbook costs. Highway robbery, right? Elijah said, noticing her expression. Check if your professors put copies on reserve at the library. Or, he lowered his voice, the PDF versions mysteriously circulate every semester. She smiled, charmed by his conspiratorial tone. Thank you for the tip. There's a coffee shop on campus that's hiring, he mentioned as they left. I work there mornings. Pays decent, and you get free coffee. If you're looking for a job, I could put in a good word. A job. She'd never had a real job. She'd gone straight from college to Digisahel's executive track. I might take you up on that, she said. Later that night, lying in her narrow dorm bed, Amina realized she hadn't thought about board meetings, stock prices, or tabloid rumors all day. Instead, her mind kept returning to Elijah's kind eyes and the way he'd taken time to help a lost stranger. 2 weeks into her new life, Amina, or Aissatou, as she was now known to everyone, had settled into a routine. Classes during the day, study sessions in the evening, and weekend shifts at Brood Awakening, the campus coffee shop where Elijah had indeed helped her get hired. Making coffee for demanding students was humbling. Her hands were often stained with espresso, her apron splattered with milk foam, and her feet ached after each shift. But there was something satisfying about the simplicity of it. Take order, make drink, receive thanks. No complex negotiations, no power plays, no lives hanging in the balance. Elijah worked the register while she handled the espresso machine. Between customers, he told her about his family, his mother who worked as a nurse, his 14-year-old sister who was a math prodigy, and his 10-year-old brother who was crazy about soccer. Dad left when Zach was 2, he explained one slow afternoon. Mom's been working double shifts ever since. That's why I'm here on scholarship, working 2 jobs, journalism degree, then hopefully a good reporting gig to help support them. Amina thought about her own father, who had built an empire from nothing, whose ambition had given her every advantage in life. Your mother sounds like an amazing woman, she said softly. She is, Elijah agreed. What about your family? She had prepared for this question. My father works in banking, she said. Technically true. My mother teaches literature. They wanted me to study in America for the opportunities. Must be hard being so far from home. She nodded, feeling a pang of guilt at the deception. Sometimes. But it's also freeing. As weeks passed, Amina found herself spending more time with Elijah. They studied together at the library, ate ramen in his off-campus apartment that he shared with 2 other students, and debated everything from politics to movies. He was brilliant, she discovered, insightful about world events, passionate about economic inequality, and determined to become an investigative journalist who exposed corporate corruption. The irony wasn't lost on her. One night, after a documentary screening about tech monopolies, they ended up at a 24-hour diner. Elijah was fired up, gesturing with a French fry as he spoke. Companies like Digisahel have so much power over people's financial lives with almost no oversight, he said. Did you know their CEO is barely older than we are? Some billionaire heiress who's probably never worked a real day in her life. Amina nearly choked on her milkshake. Maybe she's trying her best, she managed. Elijah softened. Sorry, I didn't mean to rant. It's just, the system is so unbalanced, you know? My mom works 60-hour weeks saving lives and can barely afford rent while some people inherit empires. She wanted to defend herself, explain how she'd worked 18-hour days learning every aspect of the business, how she'd developed programs to increase financial inclusion for women in rural areas, how she lay awake at night worrying about the responsibility of thousands of employees depending on her decisions. Instead, she asked, what would you do differently if you were her? The question sparked a conversation that lasted until the diner closed. Elijah had ideas, good ones, about transparency, ethical AI development, and microloans for small businesses. Amina found herself taking mental notes, seeing her company through fresh eyes. As they walked back to campus under a canopy of stars, their hands brushed. Elijah hesitated, then gently took her hand in his. His palm was warm, slightly calloused from his weekend construction job. Is this okay? He asked. She nodded, her heart racing in a way it never had with the polished businessmen and celebrities she'd dated before. When he kissed her goodnight outside her dorm, she felt like she was falling from a great height, terrified but exhilarated. By mid-semester, Amina was living a double life. Mornings and weekends belonged to Aissatou, classes, coffee shop shifts, and increasingly, Elijah. Nights were still claimed by Amina Diallo, CEO who worked remotely after her roommate fell asleep, making decisions and directing her executive team via encrypted messages. Sahel was facing a challenge from GlobePay, an American company trying to muscle into the African market. Their CEO, Richard Vance, was known for aggressive tactics and had been trying to arrange a meeting with Amina for months. Her wellness sabbatical had clearly frustrated him, as his latest emails to the board suggested a potential hostile takeover if the company continued its rudderless leadership. But during the day, these corporate battles seemed distant. Elijah had introduced her to his family over video chat. His mother, exhausted after a night shift but warm-eyed, had thanked her for being a good influence on her son. His siblings had teased him about finally having a girlfriend, making both Elijah and Amina blush. They were now officially dating, spending most evenings together. Elijah lived frugally, cooking meals instead of ordering takeout, watching movies on his laptop instead of going to theaters, celebrating special occasions with walks by the lake rather than expensive restaurants. Amina found herself treasuring these simple pleasures more than any luxury she'd known. When Elijah gave her a hand-knitted scarf for their 1-month anniversary made by his sister with yarn he'd bought by skipping lunches for a week, she nearly cried. The guilt of her deception grew heavier each day. Several times she almost told him the truth, but fear held her back. What if he couldn't see past her wealth? What if he felt betrayed? What if he thought their entire relationship was built on lies? Then came the charity gala. Sahel was sponsoring a major education initiative, and Amina's presence was non-negotiable. She told Elijah she had a family emergency and flew to New York for the weekend, transforming back into Amina Diallo, tech mogul, in a designer gown and diamonds. She didn't notice the social media influencer who recognized her and surreptitiously filmed her speech. She didn't see the TikTok video going viral. African tech queen spotted after mysterious disappearance. She returned to campus Sunday night, exhausted but relieved to be back in her simpler life. Elijah met her at the bus stop with a hug and hot chocolate. "Everything okay with your family?" he asked, concerned. "All resolved," she lied, hating herself for it. The next morning, her phone exploded with notifications. The viral video had been picked up by news outlets. Worse, someone had connected dots, comparing photos of Amina Diallo with the exchange student at Westlake University. Side-by-side comparisons were spreading across Twitter and Instagram. She was in the middle of class when Elijah texted, "We need to talk, now." Her heart sank. She found him in the journalism department's computer lab, staring at a screen displaying her corporate headshot beside a candid photo of Aissatou at the coffee shop. "Tell me this is some bizarre coincidence," he said, voice hollow. Students around them were whispering, pointing. Her carefully constructed normal life was collapsing in real time. "Elijah, I can explain." "Explain what? That you're actually a billionaire playing poor for fun? That everything between us has been some kind of social experiment?" "No, it wasn't like that." "Then what was it like, Amina? Or should I call you Ms. Diallo?" His voice cracked. "Was anything real?" Before she could answer, her security chief called. "Ms. Diallo, we have a situation. Richard Vance is claiming you've abandoned the company. He's called an emergency shareholder meeting to vote on acquisition. You need to return immediately." Her two worlds were colliding catastrophically. "I'll be there," she said, then turned back to Elijah. "Please give me a chance to explain everything, tonight." But his expression had hardened. "I have to pick up extra shifts to help my mom pay for my brother's asthma medication. You know, real-world problems. Enjoy your billions." He walked away, leaving her standing alone as whispers and camera phones surrounded her. The next 48 hours were chaos. Amina returned to Lagos, reasserted control of her company, and faced down Richard Vance in a boardroom showdown that would later be described in Business Insider as the corporate equivalent of a chess grandmaster playing against a checkers enthusiast. But her victory felt hollow. She kept checking her phone, hoping for a message from Elijah. Nothing. She had her PR team release a statement explaining her immersive research project to better understand user experiences. But the damage was done. Billionaire Disguise was trending, with opinions divided between those who found it inspirational and those who called it poverty tourism. A week later, she was back in her penthouse office, staring out at Lagos, feeling more isolated than ever. Her assistant entered with the daily briefing. The board is pleased with the GlobePay situation. The new app has 200,000 downloads already. Oh, and there's a journalism student from Westlake University who's been calling every day. Security keeps blocking him, but he's persistent. Amina's heart leapt. Send him up, now. 15 minutes later, Elijah stood in her office, looking out of place in his worn jeans and university sweatshirt amid the minimalist luxury. Nice view, he said awkwardly. Elijah, I read your company's financial inclusion initiative for rural women, he interrupted. And the educational scholarship program. They're actually impressive. She took a tentative step toward him. I never lied about who I am, just what I have. Why the deception? Why Westlake? Why me? I wanted to be seen for myself, not my money. Westlake was random, but you... She took a deep breath. You were never part of any plan. You were the best surprise of my life. He was quiet for a long moment. I felt so stupid, like I'd been the butt of some elaborate joke. It was never about you. I was running from my life, not toward anything. But then I met you, and suddenly I was running towards something. Towards someone who saw me. Really saw me. I'm still angry, he said, and confused. I don't know how to reconcile the Aissatou I fell for with all this. He gestured at the opulent office. They're both me. I'm still the person who can't make latte art to save her life, who argues about movie endings, who loves your family's video calls. A hint of a smile touched his lips. My sister wants to know if you have a private jet. I do, she admitted. But I also have the scarf she made me. It's the most valuable thing I own. Elijah moved to the window, standing beside her. Below, Lagos continued its eternal motion. I have an idea, he said finally. A proposal, actually. I'm listening. DigiSahel could use an investigative journalism division. Someone to keep the company honest, report on its real-world impact, hold power accountable, even when that power is you. She raised an eyebrow. Are you proposing a job or a relationship? Both, he said. But on one condition, we start over. No secrets, no pretending. Just Amina and Elijah, figuring it out together. She held out her hand. Hello, I'm Amina Diallo, tech CEO, coffee shop disaster, and completely in love with you. He took her hand, his anger softening into something more complex but infinitely more real. Nice to meet you, Amina. I'm Elijah Carter, journalist, scholarship kid, and still deciding how I feel about billionaires, though one in particular is growing on me. Outside, the sun set over Lagos, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples. Inside, two people from different worlds stood together, facing an uncertain future, but facing it honestly at last.